Hello, hi. I hope your week is going well. I'm filming this on a Friday. You're probably not going to see it on a Friday, but I am so ready for the weekend. I'm going to the mountains tomorrow to see Bon Iver in Asheville, and I'm so excited. I could not get work done today, which is really a bummer because procrastination for me means that I have to work on the weekends. So I don't know why I do this to myself. Also, as a freelancer who works from home, I tend to forget that every year after Halloween, there's this bowl of candy that just sits there and no one is here to judge me. So I eat so much of it and then I feel miserable, and that's just kind of where we're at today. So I'm drinking some decaf coffee, trying to trick my brain into thinking that it's caffeinated so that I can keep working. Hopefully I can work a few more hours tonight. It's like 5 o'clock at night, so Aaron should be home any minute. Hopefully I can get some work done so that we can get up early and leave for tomorrow. But anyway, I'm rambling. Today I wanted to talk all about developmental editing. And I have mentioned developmental editing. I talked about it at great length actually in another video, which I will link down below. It was the types of editing video, I think, so I don't just talk about developmental editing, but I do give a pretty good overview of what developmental editing is. I think it's one of the most mysterious editing services out there. It's also referred to as book doctoring a lot of the time. It's really the editorial process of restructuring a manuscript, kind of looking at the skeleton of the thing. And it really takes a big picture approach. Usually the developmental editing process means that it's in the early draft phase. So it's a little bit more labor intensive in that way. I forget where I heard this. It must have been through the EFA or something, but this is the best picture of developmental editing that I've seen so far. And that's that copy editing is kind of like baking. There's a science to it. There's exact measurements. You have to follow a recipe pretty thoroughly, otherwise you would just ruin the whole thing. There are certain rules to abide by. Developmental editing is more like cooking. It's a little bit more organic in its approach. There's not a tried and true way of doing things. There's not always one solution to an issue. There's many different kinds of feedback that you can get with developmental editing. There's not a detailed recipe for developmental editing. And I think that that makes developmental editing seem really complex and hard to explain. Developmental editors pay attention to the general presentation of a manuscript, but they also really look out for clarity of ideas, making sure that the chapters flow nicely into each other. It's really more narrative shaping and checking for plot holes and making sure your thesis or your main ideas or your themes land in the manuscript. Often with developmental editing, editors provide multiple opportunities for revision. There's not always just one answer or one change, one idea, as I mentioned. Developmental editing also assesses the marketability of a manuscript and kind of pinpoints the weaknesses and strengths of a manuscript. But unlike manuscript evaluations or critiques, a developmental edit will be full of extensive margin notes and lots of feedback. The developmental editor really takes on the role of writing coach in a lot of ways and teaches the author about the craft of writing. They're kind of the kings and queens of examples. They provide multiple resources, whether that's writing books or editing books or comparable titles. Actually, developmental editing probably looks at the marketability and, focuses on the intended audience more than any other editing service. Because it's more of a hands-on or even collaborative approach than copy editing or proofreading or even line editing, there tends to be a longer turnaround time. It's also one of the more expensive services, which I'm actually planning to talk about editorial rates in one of my videos. Who knows, maybe I've already posted it already. It's hard to say, but so stick around for that if you have questions about how much a developmental edit costs. Generally, along with revised manuscripts, authors will receive detailed editorial letters and then potentially other resources as well, like character charts or book maps where you kind of go through scene by scene for action and pacing. Sometimes authors will receive timelines that are really detailed. It really just kind of depends on the editing project and what your particular strengths or weaknesses are with your writing. Sometimes authors will even receive detailed timelines. It really just kind of depends on what the manuscript needs. In a way, developmental editing is more about shaping than trimming away, I guess you could say. And it's really, really difficult to do. So if you're planning to find a developmental editor, make sure you do your research. Find somebody who knows what they're doing, because a developmental editor is not, I repeat, is not a beta reader. You don't want to just pass somebody your manuscript to get a second set of eyes on your characters or your plot. You really want somebody who can dissect and just pick apart scenes and chapters and whole sections, and that's why they call it book doctoring, really. So I think that's all I can really say about developmental editing, at least in this video. I feel like that was kind of short, but you know, it's past 5 o'clock on a Friday, so well done me. Let me know in a comment down below if you've ever received developmental editing, if you have additional feedback, maybe you offer developmental editing services. Again, I'm all about making this a conversation and a resource for other writers and editors. And yeah, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.